When you ask most people why they had children, they often give you answers that would kind of make your heart swell, right? Things like, because I want to know what it's like to love someone so deeply that your heart breaks open and is kind of in a continuous cycle of getting larger all the time. Or you could answer something like what my husband said, who is, I want to continue on the family legacy, and I'm 26,321 in line for Packers season tickets, and I only move down a couple of hundred seats a year, so in my lifetime it's never going to happen, but I am allowed to pass on my cue to my children. Someone in this family is going to have season tickets to the Green Bay Packers. Or people also might say something like this, because they will teach me more about life and myself than I could on my own. Now, all of those are really wonderful kind of reasons to have children, right? Either they have some kind of weight or they're deep existential awareness or a hint of legacy. None of that is true for me. I have always joked, and I believe that there is a piece that is true for me that I had children because I needed someone to go to animation films with me because I didn't like going by myself all the time. Because when you think about it, sometimes a solo adult in a G-rated movie gives you odd looks all the time, and I didn't want the odd looks, and I really see a lot of animation. And so when my son Nels, who's 30 now, was born, I think it was like the third or fourth day of his life, we had him in, his little basket car seat piece, and he was in that movie with us watching some animation film. So for 30 years, I've dragged my kids to many movies, and a while ago, I brought my daughter Neva to this movie called The Rise of the Guardians. And as Neva and I watched and I ate our popcorn, right, of course, I'm thinking, oh my God, there is a sermon in this movie. And I wished I had had uh, paper with me. And I was tempted. I actually asked Neva if she'd be willing to sit through the whole movie again, but she didn't want to do that. So we asked her cousin Trigvi to come with us, and Trigvi and Neva and I watched the movie again, and I brought paper and pencil this time. You see, The Rise of the Guardians is a cleverly conceived story about finding one's center, about being true to oneself, one's most authentic self. So the main characters are Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, the Sandman, and the Easter Bunny. All have something about their core, their essential self that helps make childhood magical. So for Santa Claus, the center for him is wonder. For the Easter Bunny, it's hope and faith in new life. For the Sandman, it's a place to cultivate a child's dreams and imagination. For the Tooth Fairy, it's collecting teeth which hold important memories of childhood. Now, all these characters live into their essential self because children believe in them. In the movie, Santa, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, and the Sandman start losing their powers because children lose their belief and their faith in them. Now, I found that to be a fascinating concept, right? Is it true that we too can live into our core, find our center, our self, our most essential self, if we have people who believe in us as well? And then there is the character of Jack Frost, who nobody can see because he isn't believed in, and he doesn't know what his core, his most authentic, essential self even is. So, second time I watched the movie and I thought maybe, just maybe, it would make more sense to live into our authentic selves, into finding our center rather than kind of focusing on bettering ourselves. We live in this culture that's always about bettering ourselves. Maybe it would make more sense to do something else. And I think, honestly, friends, that's our true calling. is not to better or perfect ourselves, but simply to figure out who we really are. Now, that may sound strange, but I think it's truer than we want it to be. Indeed, new research of what makes humans happy has nothing to do with bettering yourself. Scientists have found that it's not wealth or prestige or honor or legacy or education or beauty or fame that makes human beings happy. Instead, across the board, what makes humans happy is this. Can you recognize what your core is, what your authentic self is, and then let that voice kind of speak in all that you do and believe and experience and pursue? So there was a Hasidic master, Rabbi Zusa, who shared of his wisdom in the 1700s. And one day he said to his congregation, "When I get to heaven, God will not ask me, 'Why aren't you Moses?' but rather will ask me, 'Why weren't you Zusa?'" Right? Wait a minute, 1700s, rabbi talking to his congregation about what is he talking about? He's talking about how important it is to live into your own authentic core, not someone else's or someone else's expectations or dreams or idea of who you should be. The great preacher who served as Martin Luther King Jr.'s spiritual advisor, Howard Thurman, once said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and then go do it. Because what the world needs most is people who have come alive." So, all right, after watching this movie, I decided to ask others to delve into uncovering kind of their essential, authentic self along with me. And I emailed about 10 different parishioners and family and friends, and I asked them if they would go to this movie at the time. They would go to the movie, but then just recently I had them do it again because this whole movie is on Netflix right now. And I asked them to do a spiritual assignment after watching this movie. And yes, I told them The Rise of the Guardians is an animation film, but trust me, you're gonna find meaning out of this whole thing. So this group was mixed between men and women, almost completely even. Most of them were between the age of 45 and 75. And I was both blessed and stunned by their answers. So the first question I asked was, when are you at your best? And here are a few of their answers. When I can make someone laugh and when I can give comfort. When something unexpected happens and action is needed. When I have a good night's sleep and enough quiet time. Two people said early in the morning. Another said when I am moving or gazing at the stars at night. So a wide diversity of answers and honesty, right, about what gets them there. Now, the second and third questions that I asked were related to each other. What 5 attributes or skills, personality traits, or talents would other people say make up your essential self? And what 5 would you pick for yourself? Now, here's where it really got interesting. I was just kind of blown away by their honesty. I was a little worried, actually, because I've done spiritual assignments with people before, and I was a little worried that I might get what they thought I wanted to hear, or something that would entertain me or make me laugh. But their ability to be honest and true was profoundly humbling. Here's what I mean. Here's what someone said others would say about their personality traits. This guy was about, I don't know, 71, 72. Nice, taciturn, smart, gentle, and forgettable. See what I mean about vulnerable and honest? Now, here's the 5 that he picked for himself: intelligent, compassionate, understand the unity of all things, relational, and doubting of self. Now, this is what they wrote about comparing their two lists. I find that they are generally compatible, but what I see in myself is dependent or provincial is, I believe, seen by others as odd or unknowable and ultimately unworthy of the effort required to comprehend. Now, I share this one because for me, it was so bravely honest. But I gotta say, all of them were honest about the good and also about the bad that we might coin about ourselves. They included as well into all of these. And it's here in this honest assessment of themselves that all of these friends so clearly seemed heroic in a sense. Now, the second thing that I found fascinating is the answer to this question. What gets you off track or like trips you up from living into your core self? Now, there were two different lists because I had to split them up into like what made sense to categorize together. So there was one group that was basically things like this. What trips you up or gets you off track from living in your core self? One category was this. When I lose my way, allow someone to take me away from myself or being, frivolous distractions, not feeling heard or valued, not enough rest. That list I thought I could relate to indeed. In fact, I think we all can too, a little, right? But here's the list that had an ongoing, like, common thread through all of this that they all shared. Here it is. What keeps you off track or trips you up about living into your authentic self? Remember, that's the question, right? Here's the other list where most of their answers were feeling inadequate, anxiety, protecting myself from judgment, others' opinions of me, being afraid of not being accepted, and that limits taking a chance with something new, not living into my fullest potential, critical of self, rejection, my need to be well thought of by others. Are you catching the thread through all of this? Because what is it? It's fear. That's amazing to me. We all hold it, we all harbor it, we all feel it. Fear of success and fear of failure, fear of other people's judgments, fear of like other people's opinions, fear of our own decisions and then the consequences thereof. Friends, don't you see what most often gets in our way to happiness, to pulling ourselves into who we most truly are? It's fear. Now, here's the thing. I've come to believe that there are ways to overcome at least some of this fear. They aren't easy to do, but they will allow you to enter into that state of living and knowing and acting from your most authentic self. And I found you can use this as a very brief kind of like instructional manual, if you will, to start. However, you got to be sure to rinse and repeat these instructions over and over again throughout your lifetime. But I gotta say, when I follow like these little rules that I put together of my instruction manual, I'm on task to my most authentic self. And when I don't do them, I get like 10% into that authentic self. When I watch others follow through on these instructions as well, I know they are well on their way to becoming their own hero. So, first instructions from the manual. Hang loose regarding your schemes and your plans and your possible failures, okay? We so often convince ourselves that if this one strategy we've worked on to live into our authentic self doesn't work, well, then we've kind of failed. We're done. Our negative inner voice says, well, I told you so. Or those negative voices around us can't fail to mention it was doomed actually from the beginning. But here's the thing, throughout life, things are going to go wrong, right? In truth, a lot more wrong than right, at least in my experience. So we need to not hang so tightly to outcomes and plans. We need to remember to hang loose. Now, the Buddhists, of course, would call this, we need to release ourselves from attachment. I love this story, though, that Martha Beck tells in her book, Finding Your North Star. She talks about going to China in the 1980s, and she was traveling with her husband. And at the time when you were in China, you could book a ticket to Beijing, but not to other cities in China until you were in the country yourself. So the first part of her trip went swimmingly. They arrived in Beijing and went to that foreigners travel office to buy an airline ticket to southern China. And at that foreign travel office, a long line had formed. So Martha and her husband are in the back, and Martha's pulling out her uh what do you call those? Like the book to translate into Cantonese, right? So a translating book, and she's working through phrases in her head that might be helpful. And at the front of the line was a woman at a small desk who was kind of filing her nails, and an Englishman was first in line as soon as like they let people through. After 15 minutes of nail filing, she sets it down and says, "Next," in English. The man said, "Yeah, I've come to pick up my ticket to Shanghai. I was told it would be here." And the woman took his name, leafed through a small card file, and said, "Yeah, your ticket is in that drawer over there." And she pointed to a desk across the way. And then she didn't say anything. The Englishman waited and said, "Well, can I have it?" And the woman responded, "Well, it's in the drawer and the drawer is locked." And the guy says, "Well, would you mind opening it up?" he asked. She said, I'm sorry, but that's Mr. Liu's desk, and Mr. Liu is at lunch right now, and he's the only one who can open it." "Well, when is he going to be back from lunch?" And she said, "When will he be back?" The woman kind of shrugged. And then the guy asked, "Well, when did he leave?" "Well," she said, "I think it was Tuesday. We haven't seen him for a couple of weeks." And the Englishman kind of lost it, right? And said, I can't believe this country. It's such a barbarian place to be. Oh my God, oh my God." And then the woman behind the desk says in Cantonese, "There is no God." Now, as Martha and her husband watched this transpire, they burst out laughing at the agent's comment. And then the travel agent actually started laughing herself. Then, a few minutes later, a young bureaucrat came up to them and asked politely where they would like to travel. Martha said everyone was so pleased with them for knowing a little Chinese that they bent over backwards actually to help them. Martha says she tries to remember to hang on to that kind of story, to remember that, you can have well-made plans or schemes, and they often can go awry. Because, as she remarks, this is part of living into your essential self. You will fail along the way. Things are gonna go wrong. You must adjust and relinquish your expectations. So stay open to failure as well as success. See what's working and what's not. Then flow into that rhythm dictated by the situation, not your preconceptions. Stop looking at it as a failure and all is doomed, because it's not a failure. It's just I am prone, even as an extrovert, as an upbeat, kind of happy-go-lucky person, that I need an adjustment to the storyline often. The committee in my head can tell me that what just happened is because of some serious flaw inside of myself. So I've come to rely on my husband to do what we call a reframe, and he can always do it for me. So hang loose, adjust, and be sure to reframe. Okay, second instruction from the manual: learn from your mistakes. Now, I am not there with you right now, and I know that you all probably just rolled your eyes a little bit. And in truth be told, right? Weren't we all told that? Learn from your mistakes from our first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade teachers. Of course we were. Now, do I do it 100% of the time? Absolutely not. Sometimes, actually, when I make a mistake, my fear can override any good found in learning from said mistake. Fear of being judged, fear of another failure, fear of others' opinions of me. Actually, fear of success sometimes, fear of not knowing how to start again. There's a lot of fear in there. But I'm not alone. Almost everyone who filled out that assignment, right, that I talked about in the beginning from the movie had the same response. But here's the thing. When a plane crashes, right, there's almost always a wild search for the black box. That one tool that helps the air be safer after analysts have spent hours figuring out what actually went wrong in those crashes. The airlines and pilots have learned how to learn from their mistakes, not 20% of the time, 30% of the time, 100% of the time. But most of us don't have a black box approach to our own mistakes. We like to put failure like behind us, avoid thinking about it, and actually we often hide it from others. But to really get to your authentic self, to act from it, we have to be like the airlines and figure out what went wrong. If you don't check in with yourself or others after a mistake, you leave like this wealth of information in other people's heads regarding the situation that may actually enlighten you and open you up to another way of trying it. But too often we ignore that black box and bury it without a glance, only to turn small, isolated errors into big, repetitive failures. I'm going to say that again, because when I really think about this, oh, yeah, it can be true, right? Without a glance, only to turn small, isolated errors into big, repetitive failures if I don't go back and figure out what to learn from it. We should all just start the mantra after a mistake: black box, black box, black box. Evaluate the mistake, and we'd be one step closer to living into our authentic self. Now, I have one more thing to add to that. Often what happens to us is not just that we want to bury the box. I think it's something more. Remember, it isn't just fear of failure. It is also fear of others' opinions of you, of their judgment or their anger or their frustration. However, if you really do all you can not to repeat the mistake and learn from it, and others still hold a poor opinion of you or judge you, then friends, come on. That's their deal and not yours. In fact, I found this best line a while ago when someone I love dearly got sober, and they had a list of things to remember. And one of them on that list that I have held with me is what other people think of you is none of your business. What other people think of you is none of your business. I I kind of want that tattooed on the inside of my hand so I can remember it every day. Okay, so here's the last one from the manual. Hang out with your favorite people. It seems so simple and almost like a stupid thing to say, as if that's good advice on anything, but we don't always do it. Why is it that we let the judgment and narrow-mindedness of others, people who don't care about us that much or don't even like us, be the stronger voice in our head than those who believe in our authentic, true voice wholeheartedly and unabashedly? Yet the answer to this dilemma is so simple. Hang out with those who believe in you through and through, for they will give you support and love and guidance. That will indeed make you happy and awaken your authentic self and keep you on track. This was actually one of the great lessons from that movie. All the characters' powers started fading away when children stopped believing in them. But when they were believed in, when they had the capacity to live out of their core, well, they created magic and light and hope for others. And I don't know about you, but you don't have to be Santa or the Tooth Fairy or the Easter Bunny to create magic in your life and in other people's lives as well. And it's just simply true. When others believe in you, man, it makes it a lot easier to simply believe in yourself as well. Okay, so there it is. Hang loose when you make a mistake. Think black box, black box, black box. What other people think of you is none of your business. And hang out with your favorite people. Friends, I'm hoping that you can kind of hold on to this as like a little spiritual quest for yourself, for your own well-being, for your own heart and your hands and your feet in action. May you continue to like learn from these little lists of an instruction manual and find yourself deep within yourself, your most authentic self, and then shine on and share your light with others. Or in the words of Douglas Horton, be your own hero. It's cheaper than a movie ticket. May it be so. Amen.